Hey everyone, welcome to the very first episode of Unlocking Growth. I'm your host, Bryon Robbins. This is where we talk real about leadership, business, and moving forward. We're going to be sharing stories, lessons we've learned, sometimes the hard way, and practical ideas you can use to grow yourself, your team, and your business. So if you're ready, let's dive in. Our guest is Jason Robbins, and we're working together on a number of buildings here in town and have a lot happening. And so we're just going to dive into it and talk about what's going on with the past building, the BTC, Business Technology Center. It's been empty for a number of years, and right now we're going through and rehabbing that building. Jason, it's great to have you here. And in the vault with all the empty boxes, which we were really hoping would be full when we bought the building, but they were empty. Or maybe somebody else would have bought it before us. But how are you doing?
Good. Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, hey, talking about the BTC building, I know we haven't named it yet. There's a lot of names being thrown around. Have you heard any names?
I have not. Yeah. Right now I would call it the Money Pit.
The Money Pit. Great name. Yeah, there you go. Our accountant will love that. So with some of the names we've been throwing around are the Commons, we want to stay away from anything that has to do with towers. We were really wanting to stay away from anything that tied to the name of one of our companies, because we were thinking about the fact that we might be renting to other companies and retail outlets. And so one of the names we've been throwing around is the Commons, but we'll get to that later and figure out what to call it. That's why we have a marketing department. So
right.
We'll let those guys figure it out. But what piqued your interest the most about that building?
I think just the need for it. So looking back, we have outgrown the building that we're currently in. We picked up an additional building to renovate in order to be able to expand the business. And then there was a third building that was needed. So all of a sudden we're looking at it saying we've got one business that's going to be under three roofs. And that's not going to be easy to manage and to, each department to work well together. So I guess the size of the building, the fact that there's an elevator that is working and can be brought up to the codes of the state of Illinois very easily and cost effective. So I would say cost per square foot and the size of the building is what caught my eye.
Yeah, I've noticed as we walk through these different buildings downtown, they all have these long, beautiful stairwells, but nobody wants to walk up stairs anymore. So a working elevator is something that is a necessity. I know it goes from the first floor to the fourth floor, and then the freight elevator actually goes all the way to the fifth floor. So,
yeah, stairs are, especially in a building that's 5 stories tall, that's a lot of stairs. If we're not used to running them, if you're not in the gym, you don't want to do it.
You know, you mentioned talking about being underneath different roofs with our companies. Like right now we're under basically 3, because we have the warehouse, which has employees down there with a manager. And then we moved our logistics company to a building that we just renovated, and absolutely beautiful, going back to the 10 ceilings, brick walls, looks great. And so we have one team there. And then we have another building that we would have in January to start going through and making into offices, which would put us into 3 buildings. One of the big reasons why I want to see us into one building is just to be able to collaborate on ideas and to be able to have that culture of in it together. What are some of the things you think about when we're trying to be underneath one roof?
Yeah, definitely. Being able to, each department that's working on specific areas, but all within the building or all within the business, I think it is important that you can, join together in one large room, talk about some ideas, especially if you've got some different visions, or if you've got a vision that the direction of the company will be headed. You can bring everybody together in one spot and not have to, have 4 separate meetings or 3 separate meetings and have conversations that are happening outside of one conversation. So I think it's very important that we can get everybody in the same building, and when it's necessary to have a meeting with everyone, it's just so much easier.
Yeah, it is. And we already find you have to be very intentional to bring everybody together for quarterly meetings and, some lunches that we do for different get-togethers to try to really improve that culture and keep that culture alive. And so being in one building is going to be a lot easier. With our growth that we're looking at, being in one building was going to be difficult, here in Monmouth without a building of this size. How many offices did you count?
Yeah, so it depends on how we, slice it up. So I know for sure we can end up with 70 plus office spaces. There's some larger rooms when we get up into the 4th floor and the 5th floor that we could have some workstations that might accommodate 10 people or 15 people in a room. So if you count all of that, I believe that we could easily be 100 workstations. And in that, there would be approximately 70 offices.
Yeah, I know some of those offices are larger, and so it was easy to walk into those wondering, could you get 2 or 3 people into this office? And I know when people are walking through, they might be looking at it and saying, boy, this would be a nice size office.
Yeah, the good thing is if somebody walks in and they say, that's the office I want, there's a good chance they won't be able to find that office again. Yeah. It is like a maze walking through there. There's so many offices and so many different floors.
Yeah, I found a whole new set of bathrooms I didn't even know existed in that building. And we just had Chris Gavin from Midwest Bank, and we just had him in the building with Andrea from the MCAP and from the chamber and a couple others, and we were walking through, and he was over the chamber office for 8 years that was residing in that building, and he said he had never seen the 4th floor or the 5th floor, and so he was really excited about the possibilities that were there.
Thinking about the condition of the building, and it was vacant for probably close to 2 decades, I was shocked that there wasn't more mold. I was surprised. A lot of buildings that I've been in that have been shut up for so many years, there's just so much condensation, so much moisture that's been kept in the building when the AC is not running and the doors aren't being opened up regularly and getting fresh air in. And so that was one of the things that really shocked me, was the demolition of this project is small. I mean, the amount of drywall that we've cut out, most of it's the 1st floor, and it's from the concrete floor, maybe like 2 feet to 3 feet up, and maybe half of the walls on the 1st floor where we've removed drywall in order to get rid of any moisture, mildew, mold. But the rest of the floors, I don't see any mold, any moisture, so I've been very pleasantly surprised by that. What are things, Bryon, that you've seen that you were surprised by for a building that sat empty for so long?
Well, I'm very thankful that it has concrete floors, because that means the doors are straight, the walls are straight. I know Chris Gavin was walking through, he was super impressed with the condition of the building. It opened on August 20th, 40 years ago. And so for that to be in the condition that it was in was absolutely incredible. The walls, I was shocked with the mold issues not being there in abundance. The ceiling tile, I know we're gonna have to replace a lot of that because there was a lot of ceiling tile that was sagging. The biggest thing for me when we're walking through these buildings that are older, the one thing we run into all the time is lack of bathrooms. And so this building had the bathrooms put into it when they went through and renovated it 40 years ago. And so that was a huge plus to be able to have men and women's bathrooms of the size they are. So that's probably one of the biggest things I noticed was when you talk about the heating and cooling, because cooling can be a problem in these older buildings because a lot of them had radiator heat. And so having all of those things in place was a big plus. Do you remember what floor we were on when we had Robbins Pallets and Rich Robbins and Sons there?
Yeah, I'm not for sure. It was either the 2nd or the 3rd floor.
Yeah, it was 305, I believe. So it was on the 3rd floor, and we had a suite. And back then, I think we paid like $140. It was on a sliding scale per office, but we had 2 offices side by side, and so on that 3rd floor. And that's where it's interesting to me that we've now bought the building that Robbins Pallets had started in, that Robbins Resource Management was brought out of, birthed out of basically. And then you have the buildings, our warehouses was where we were renting, and we've now purchased those and added docks where we didn't have any docks before. We did everything with pallet jacks and chains. And so we've come a long ways from where we were at 28 years ago.
Yeah, we're a sucker for punishment. With this space, we're talking about growing into what used to be the BTC building, 620 South Main Street. And we realized, there's 6,500 square feet on each floor. So that's 6,500 times 5. And I'm not that quick to just spit out the total square footage, but it's a lot. And Robbins Resource Management, we'll need all that space at some point, but we're talking, it could be 5 years down the road before we would totally fill this building. And I know, Bryon, we've talked about, who could utilize that space between now and then. And we've kicked around different ideas, and we've talked to different businesses in Monmouth, and we've even shown the building to a few different businesses that are locally here in Monmouth. And actually, there's another business that I had a conversation with, and it'll be a fresh startup. And I love the fact that we have the ability to give someone space that is looking for space in Monmouth, and there's really not a lot of office space that's available. I had a phone call from a guy in Missouri just the other day, and he had been hired to find 3 office spaces in Monmouth for a company that wants to come here to Monmouth. And he said he hasn't been able to get 3. He said there's just not the space. And so I gave him one option that we have available now, which is 216 South Main, if anyone's looking for some space. And it's ready to go now. And then I also was talking to him about the BTC and how in 3 months from now we'll have some space available there. So that's exciting to me, just the fact, think about the BTC, it's the Business Technology Center. Back in, I think it was in 85, I read something, it was a flyer that I found in the BTC, and it was talking about how that was the incubator for small businesses. And they actually had a picture of a baby and a baby, in a small little crib, and they were showing how this building can be used to grow businesses and to help businesses have a home and a place. And so I'm excited about just the possibilities that we're able to offer to other businesses for growth.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is going to be really important, and one of the reasons why we're having these podcasts and these conversations is it's hard to start a business. It's not easy, and most businesses fail. And one of those reasons is not having a good foundation when it comes to the business itself. Someone has the idea. I know we had consultants come into the city, and one of the things that I took away from those consultants that they talked about, and this is for retail, but I would also say for people that need an office, is they talked about how you need 2 sets of people. You need people who are going in and making space available, because when you're starting a business and you have startup costs, whether you're a retail outlet or whether you're just getting started in construction or plumbing or electrical or tree service, whatever it is, you have all these other costs associated. So to go in and get a space ready and then go through all the things that you have to go through, whether it's building permits and getting phone lines run and then the heating and cooling, the gas run, electrical, and all the things that take a lot more than people realize to get a building to the point where you can have a business there. And so what they suggested was you need to make sure you're getting the spaces ready. And so the incubator that they had, I know I went through and read a receipt. One guy, his monthly bill was $24.55, and he had 4 faxes. This is back from the 1980s, but he had 4 faxes and some other costs that were associated with him. But they had where you had phone answering services and a number of different services they offered. But that is so necessary for businesses, because today you have people who put a phone number out, but nobody answers the phone. And so being able to have an office where you have somebody working in that office that's going to be able to take care of the customers. Customer service is something that's desperately needed in all the businesses. So I think that we're going to be able to, I think the problem we're going to have is we're going to run out of space within the next couple of years. I think we'll run out of space pretty quick in those buildings because of the number of people that are already talking about needing space here in our community.
Be a good problem to have.
Yeah, we'll just have to get another building.
Right. So as we were looking at this project and running numbers, we brought in the electrician, we brought in the company that will bring the elevator up to code. We ran a lot of cost improvement numbers to figure out where are we going to be at the end of this project. And with that kind of square footage that the BTC has, we're probably going to land somewhere around the 20% mark of what it would cost to build a new building of that size. And for me, looking at any buildings that get tore down in Monmouth, it's sad, especially when they've got history and there's some character to them. Obviously, if a building's been around a long time, there's flaws and there's things that you have to work with, and you are restricted compared to building a new property. But the finished product, especially when you throw in the fact that you're only going to be around 20% of the cost of building new, it just makes sense to go after these older buildings and renovate them. And I love we're pulling plaster off. I had some pictures come in today of some more walls that we're looking at. Do we want to plaster these and fix the plaster that's there, or do we want to take the plaster off and expose the brick? And I absolutely love bringing the brick back out and just seeing some of the old workmanship that happened so many years ago.
Yeah, so when you're talking about this building and you're looking at about 32,500 square feet, the low end of building office space would have you at about $150 a square foot is what ChatGPT says. At the high end, you'd be at $250 per square foot towards the higher end of that. So if you're going from at the high end, you'd be over $8 million to build that building and have it ready for office space. And I know the other day when we were walking through it with the economic development here at MCAP, the number that got thrown out would probably be right around $5 to $6 million to be able to construct something of that size. And I know we have an office area right outside town. I believe it's going to be getting turned into something else other than office space coming up shortly. But it was on the market and it was just shy of $2 million, and it was only a handful of offices. It was under 20 offices, for right around $2 million. And so when you look at the buildings that we have in this community that are currently for sale, and then you look at building new, this per square foot, like you said, that 20% range is going to be, it's going to put us in a good position to be able to help businesses get started.
Thinking about my favorite spot in this building, like as we walk through, there's 5 floors. I'd have to say that the 4th floor and the 5th floor jump out. So the 4th floor, there's no drop ceiling. It's got the concrete floors just like what you talked about. But then it also has the concrete ceiling. And I absolutely love the industrial look that the 4th floor has. And you get onto the 5th floor and it's got all those old windows. The entire 5th floor has so many windows in it with chicken wire still in it, and it's just a really cool look. And I'm not 100% sure what we're going to do with the 5th floor since the elevator does not reach the 5th floor, but it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, the 5th floor is incredible. I think, you've mentioned before a possibility of a wellness center on that 5th floor because people should be okay with taking a set of stairs to get to a weight room. What's great is it has concrete floors, so it can handle, being able to have something like that there. The 4th floor, I already know where your office you've talked about in that corner. The only thing about that corner is you are closer to the railroad tracks, and so when those trains go through, we're going to need to work on getting this to be a no horn community like Galesburg is now. And because I've noticed being back down there, it's been a while since we've been in that building. And just a few times I've been down there, I can't believe how loud the train is when it goes by. But there's so many things with this building that I like as far as with the windows and the fact that the windows open on so many of the floors where people have offices, being able to get fresh air. I know, in talking with everyone that works with us, everybody here loves having, sunlight coming through, and especially during the winter, it's so important. And so I'm excited about all the windows we have in this building. I do know that what we pay for cleaning the windows on this building that we're currently in is expensive. I can't imagine what it might be. We might have to start doing some window cleaning in-house when we get into that building.
Yeah, it saddens me a little bit when you talk about everyone's excited about the windows opening. So, the company that we've bought some product from, repurposed material, and they've got a bunch of locations around the country. On their website just the other day, I found some bulletproof glass. And I saw that and I'm like, that would be so cool to put bulletproof glass in the BTC building. The problem is you can't open the windows then. So I don't know if we can do that on one of the floors. I really want to put bulletproof glass in. I'm actually excited about the BTC also for another reason. I know the old City Hall building here in Monmouth. I had looked at that a while back and was getting kind of excited about, hey, there could be 22 office spaces in the City Hall building. And it just so happens that we would have been able to grab 22 office spaces in that building for the same cost that we'll have in this building to have 70 plus office spaces. So I feel like we dodged a bullet with that one.
Yeah, I don't think anybody driving by this building would have seen the potential from the outside. I think knowing how long it had been sitting empty, I think everybody would have had the same assumption that it would take and it's going to take a lot of work and it's going to take quite a bit of money, but nothing close to what it would take to put 20 offices into another building or 25 offices into another building. I know with Clear Profit where that's at, what's the address of Clear Profit?
227.
227. Everything always runs over budget, compared to what you think you're going to have in it. We picked that building up for a very low price, thanks to Susan Toomey and working with us on that building to get it back to where it was being used again. And so she sold it to us at a fair price. But then it takes, we end up dropping a couple $100,000 in that building. And you look at the size of it compared to the size of the BTC, and the comparison's just not there price per square foot. And that has a lot more open space also that would still need a lot of work to put in more offices. So I don't think anybody would have, I think a lot of people that walk in that building that used to be there are going to be pleasantly surprised at how intact it is.
So the mindset of someone that would get excited about a project of this size, for one, they must not like to sleep, and they must be crazy. Like thinking about this building, I feel very fortunate and having a team of people that are so gifted and talented. When I see a project like this, I instantly think of crews and people that can help to accommodate what needs to be done. And I also know they get excited about, fixing up properties in Monmouth and taking a building that hasn't really been used to its full potential for the last few decades and, bringing life back to it. And so, the mindset, I would say there's definitely the vision that has to be there for the end. But in addition to that, being able to really go with the flow and not second guess decisions. We were just looking at doing a bunch of new lighting throughout the property. And, by finding a company that specializes in that, it's going to save us a tremendous amount of money. In that they can work with Ameren and go through some of the programs that Ameren offers. And if we hadn't done that and we had hired someone else to do the lighting, you can't beat yourself up. You can't second guess. You really just have to keep moving. There's so many things that need to be done. If you wait too long for each project and try to get the absolute best, that perfection and that desire to have perfection or to save every penny will ultimately cause us to not be able to finish the project. And so to keep moving is so important, but to do it wisely with past experiences. And I just feel, again, blessed for the team of people we have around us.
Yeah, there's nobody that's ever going to accuse you of being paralyzed. They talk about being paralysis of analysis is one of the things they talk about. People who have an analytic side to them where they analyze everything, run through all this stuff, and then they never make a decision. And we have here, with Robbins Resource Management and with the other companies, we talk about people being in 4 different categories. And you can be in these categories all within a day. So you have people who are thinkers, doers, drainers, and then you also have people who are watchers. And so you have these 4 different categories, and I'm really thinking we're going to add a 5th category that's a runner. So it'll be a runner, which is where you would fit in, running towards it and seeing the opportunity. I like how you're always able to see the finished product and the products turn out so well. And then, like you said, you have a great team of people who can make that vision happen and also be part of the vision. You have a lot of people who are able to see the end product. I know your wife can do that, Jenny, and Kim can see that when they look at things. I know when I'm walking through that building, I don't know the names yet, but I see the people. Like when I'm walking through, I see 5 floors of hustle and bustle. When we walk into the building that's next door that we haven't even talked about yet, that has 3 stories. And how many square feet per story on that side is it?
That's 11,000 square feet.
So that building has 11,000 square feet per floor. Even walking in there, I look at that and look at the 2nd and 3rd floor and know that we could turn that into offices. We could have that light manufacturing. There's a lot of things that could happen in that building. There's things that could take place there that would be, we just had somebody down from Chicago that talked about how that could be rented space to people that are creating movies. And that's something that he's been involved with. And he's giving us the contacts and the names for that. And they bring 100 people with them when they, set up to do that. And that's what excites me every time, is looking at it, knowing that there could be 75 plus families impacted by the space. And where if that space wasn't finished and wasn't completed, there wouldn't be a place for them to go. It's not like you can just go somewhere else in this community. We were just in Galesburg today, and we were looking at a building there from a distance, and it was just a massive building. I don't know how many stories it was, 6 or 7 stories, apartments. We don't have much of that in Monmouth. And so, this is one of the taller buildings, in our community, and to have it not being utilized to its fullest, to me, is a shame.
Have you noticed above the 4th floor, above the windows, there's a large concrete header that says Plow Company? And I always think about what could have and what has happened in this building in the past. And I know from talking with Jenny, my wife, she said that I believe it was her uncle who, through the Great Depression, had lost his business and ended up working there in that building. And I just wonder how many stories and how many people have been impacted through different businesses that have run out of that building. And I'm not sure what all the different businesses have been there, but that's something that I'm hoping to find out as we dive into this over the next few years, is just learning more about who's been in the building for how many years and how that affected Monmouth.
The history of these buildings, the vision they had to build these buildings, the number of people that they employed, and the legacies that they've left behind is incredible. And as we look forward, what's the legacy that can be left in Monmouth for the businesses that are being built? Not only the ones we're building, but the ones that others are building. And I think this is going to be a huge help.
So thinking about the future energy and as we're renovating a building of this magnitude, we have to really think about the cost for heating and cooling, and think about the lights, and moving to LED. And fortunately, Ameren, there's some different incentives through Ameren for lighting, and it'll also cut way back on our kilowatt usage as we move forward. But I don't know how many lights we have in that building. I know the first couple floors, there's several hundred lights. And so there's 5 floors. So there's easily, 500 lights plus in just the BTC building. And the windows, when you look at the windows, there's so many windows, and not all of them are double pane. Some of them are, but you can tell that they, have been cracked. And so there's just a lot of heat loss, and it's going to be difficult to heat and cool that building. So we're looking at putting in, new windows that will be energy efficient, and the heating and cooling, we're putting in 95% efficient furnaces, and we're basically looking at this for the long term and saying, hey, 10 years from now, we really don't want to be throwing a lot of money to the power company. And if everybody is aware, I'm sure they are, the rates have been going up. So it's nice that we're at a spot where we can redo everything moving forward.
Yeah, I was talking with the gentleman that was counting the lights, and I asked him if he had GPS on his phone as he was going through, and he did not have the final number. I know he went and got in his truck to leave. He actually said goodbye, and then he got out of his truck and realized he had missed a bunch of lights, and he was counting more lights and trying to get all those counted. So I do not know. My guess is you're right on the money when it comes to 500 plus lights in that facility. And the windows is not just for the heating side of it. The other day, being in there when the sun was out, could not believe how hot it was, coming through those. The same thing we have in this building, where when you have these older windows, older glass, it lets an incredible amount of heat, into the building. And I know it doesn't do us any good if we have 30 people in the building running electric heaters in June or July, because the outside offices are burning up and the inside offices are so cold. And so it's a very important aspect of when we're looking at how do we get them properly heated and properly cooled to make people comfortable when they're working. And because people nowadays, they want to be at a very certain temperature, when they're working. Again, you go back to when these buildings were constructed in these offices, and it's amazing to me the conditions that people were willing to work in, and nobody would today.
So thinking about some crazy ideas of how we could use this building, there's just so many that come to mind. I've looked at that north building that's 11,000 square feet, and I'm standing on the ground. I'm looking up to the top of it. I'm like, man, that's got to be at least 45 feet up. And I have all the equipment to rappel, and I have the anchors to put in. And I'm thinking, man, can you imagine just running down the side of that building from the top down and rappelling and climbing? And so, that's one thing that comes to mind. And of course, it's right next to the railroad tracks, so that'd be kind of cool to be on that wall when the train's going by. And there's just so many cool ideas that I've had with this building that cross my mind that I'll probably not do. But, a gentleman called me the other day asking about, I don't even know what you call it. Maybe you do. It's like paintballing, but it's with the smaller BBs. And he said that the closest place to do that is Bloomington, Illinois. And he was looking for space to open some sort of a inside range to shoot each other with these small rubber BBs. And I was like, man, that 11,000 square foot space would be perfect for that. Yeah. It's got brick walls.
Well, that's not something that's beyond us either, from the standpoint that at 208 South Main, the second floor was a paintball area, about 8,000 square feet of paintball there for quite a while. And I've had people talking to me about needing to have glow-in-the-dark putt-putt golf, an arcade, different things like that. I think with the building, one of the things, if we're able to pull it off, which I know you're working that direction, but that's having indoor parking. And I know we're going to have people trying to figure out how do you win one of those spots or earn one of those spots to be able to have indoor parking. So in the Midwest, that would be a huge thing for during the winter. Well, as we're bringing this time to a close, a couple of things, that I'm thinking about as I think about this building and what it represents. And I know for me, when I'm down there walking through the halls and and looking, it represents people. When we talk about scaling our business and we talk about growing our business and having people with personal, professional, and financial goals that they're meeting every 2 weeks and talking through and pushing for and accomplishing and seeing that happen. I just see the number of people that are going to be able to be impacted, and then the impact that'll have on families, on our community, on our churches, on our nonprofits. Not only are we able to make a difference in this community through donations and through things we're doing with the buildings, but then also the people are able to make a tremendous difference in the community. So I know for me, looking at that building, I see the people working there, and I'm so excited to be able over the next 2 to 3 years to see that building get full. What's some of the things that you think about as you're walking through I know you see a lot of the work that needs to be done because you're the one handling that, but what's some of the things you're thinking about for the finished product?
Definitely the impact in Monmouth, that rings true. Thinking about, the jobs that are provided, and it has to start somewhere. You were just talking about a company that was hired by the city of Monmouth, a consultant company that talked about, hey, the buildings have to come first. Somebody has to, an investor has to come in, renovate the buildings. Otherwise, it's just too much. It's overwhelming for a small business to not only start a business, but also to renovate the building. And I believe that we are providing that first step. And so the impact is to the community, for the community, through the people. All of that definitely rings true. And when you think about Monmouth and how small of a town it is, there's not that many buildings that need to be renovated. We've got our hands on maybe 5 now, and if we did 5 more, that'll have a huge impact in Monmouth. And it doesn't have to be us with businesses filling those spaces. There's one building that we've got under contract that we'll close on in December, and we've talked about maybe we'll throw a sign up, build to fit the needs of whoever wants to open a business there or move a business there, and we would be willing to do the renovation for them. And so I get excited about thinking about where Monmouth will be in 5 years from now, and the small impact that we can contribute to it. So I'm excited about the future of Monmouth.
Yeah, so am I. And I know in talking with MCAP and with the chamber, the number of people we have in the international community that want to be able to start businesses and do things, and the influx of people they have asking about starting businesses. Once we're able to move out of this bank building, there's already a number of nonprofits and people that we've talked to that are interested in renting here, that would open their buildings up to be a retail store. And that's what, for Mod Speckle Bellies and the wine shop, they need more small businesses to come in alongside them to make it a destination place for people to come. And we have the people. It's just really hard for a lot of people to know how to get a business off the ground. And so not only are we going to be able to provide a place for people to be able to do that in these different buildings that we have, but then I also think it's going to help in other people wanting to renovate other buildings. And so it's not necessarily, like you said, it's not us even having the businesses, and it's not necessarily us even renovating all the other buildings. It's a matter of other people saying, hey, this is something that we can get involved with.
So all of the work that needs to be done down here at the BTC, I'm so thankful for the crews that we have. We've been using independent heating and cooling for all of the HVAC, and Tinkham Electric for all of the electric. There's JR Commercial Roofing that'll be putting on the roof, and JR Total Home Improvement that will basically take on all of the interior projects. I know there'll be some videos out there shortly that will show some before and afters promoting JR Total Home Improvement. Bryon, thinking about when we started, Robbins Pallets back almost 30 years ago, and I can remember the first 5 years we had discussions around how can we get out of this. We were working so many hours, we weren't making any money, and we just had dug in so deep there really wasn't any turning back. It was push, 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 and get through it. And, through that business has opened other doors for other businesses like Robbins Resource and, the warehouse space that we've ended up with in Monmouth and in Galesburg. I don't believe that we would be in the commercial retail space or the commercial warehouse space if it wasn't for the need of our own. I know I was a little bit scared to make that step. I had a desire to get into warehouse space, but the cost to do so and the risk, it's great. And when you need that space, it really it helps with the fear of making that leap, that purchase. And just thinking back to when we first started Robbins Pallets and have been in some businesses together, would you have ever thought that we would end up, looking at these businesses or these buildings and saying, hey, we're gonna grab that quick because that's going to be a huge step in helping us build and grow Robbins Resource? What are your thoughts? Did you ever see us at the spot that we are now, and where do you see us going?
Yeah, so there's a couple of thoughts that come to mind. One is, I think sometimes I step backwards. I used to spend 3 to 6 months in Roatan, Honduras every winter. We had, 10 to 12 employees, and we were comfortable. And it was one of those things where we were both challenged to think about the future, to think about it's not about us, it's about people. And what's your why? Like, why do you do what you do? And your why has to be big. And now, I believe, and I was just having this conversation just not that long ago with Natalie Dawson, and I was telling her that I don't agree when people say you want to be able to work smarter, not harder. And I said, the problem is as you get smarter about how you're working, you end up working harder because you keep seeing more opportunity and you keep seeing the different things you can do to grow. And where we're at today and where we're going to be, 10 years from now or 15 years from now, I really don't know where it's going to be. I know that we want to build a 9-figure business doing, over $100 million per year. We've already done over $160 million in sales, since we started Robbins Resource Management, Robbins Pallets. And so we're right about $175 million in total sales. And we're looking at, instead of that taking 18 years, we're looking at that each year being over $100 million. It comes back to what I see when I see the buildings. It's not about the dollar amount, it's about the people. So you're going to have somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000 in sales per employee that you have, and so when you look at numbers like that, you're looking at 150 to 250 employees, and that's people who are trying to reach their own personal, professional, and financial goals. And so that's what excites me, and that's also what drives me now and makes it so I don't want to put a cap on, where we can go. The struggle is going to be these are things that we're trying to overcome as a community, and the struggle is going to be, how do we get people to stay here? How do we have housing for people? And how do we have the buildings for people to have their offices and businesses in? So I think what we're doing right now is going to help in several of those areas. Now we just need to come up with an apartment complex or condos.
Yeah. There's so many ideas, and I would have never thought that we would be where we are right now 20, 30 years ago. But I'm with you. I have no idea what the future holds, because 20, 30 years ago, I would have never thought we would be where we are. I would hate to put a cap on where, what could happen, where we could go. I know I've been looking at how could we bring tourism to Monmouth. When I've had conversations with people, I've kind of gotten laughed at a little bit. This will never be the Galena, or this is just not going to be a tourist town. And just this year alone, we'll have over 250 people that will hit Monmouth that would have never come just because of Robin's Nest and the wider birthplace. And I believe next year we could be close to 500 people. I think it starts with small steps, and it's just like when you're hiking, and you're exhausted and you're tired. And the saying goes, the next step, just take the next step, one foot in front of the other. And I believe that that's where we are. And I think that as we look forward and we have some big ideas and some visions of that are different than what we've had in the past, I believe it's just one foot in front of the other.
It starts with the idea. It starts with, your enthusiasm and what you've done as far as with Wyatt Earp. I know we now have a statue in front of our building, which is ironic because Wyatt Earp was hired by Wells Fargo to kill cowboys that were robbing stagecoaches of this bank, of this banking institution. So that's a little ironic that we now have a Wyatt Earp statue in front of this building. But it, just like with the Airbnb, everybody would have said that's not going to work. And most people, and this is the problem with entrepreneurship and whether someone is a true entrepreneur or a wannabe entrepreneur, it's never going to be easy. There's always going to be a tipping point, and most people are going to quit before they go over that tipping point. But it's just like when you look back at the history of the Airbnb. In the first years, it was a learning curve of, how much can you charge for it? How do you get the word out there? It takes time to build up the credibility on Airbnb itself. I feel like the things that we're doing and the things that we're a part of are going to be able to have lasting impact, and will be part of getting that tourism to come to Monmouth, where those numbers are in the 10s and 20s and 30,000. There's so many communities realizing they can be revitalized, but it takes everybody working together. Our chamber and our MCAP, our economic development arm, are working hand in hand because Andrea is over both of them, which is very helpful. But we're in a place even locally that we've never been in before. Like, I feel when I read back through what was happening back in the 80s with economic development and the hope that people had then and what they wanted to see come to Monmouth, I feel like we have that same optimism today here locally, and I think it's growing. I appreciate you taking the time to stop and have a conversation about all the things that are happening. I know there's a tremendous amount on your plate and things that you're doing, and definitely appreciate you and what you're bringing to the community and the leadership you have with Robbins Resource Management and in all the companies that you're starting. And so definitely appreciate this time. I look forward to catching up again. I know that people think we probably have a lot of time together, which we do get together after church on Sunday, and we do some vacations together, but we don't always talk shop when we're doing those things. And sometimes you're moving so fast that I find out through the grapevine that in a new business that's getting started, and you probably find out things the same way, that something's happened or something's changed. And so it's good to sit down and catch up and to be able to have these conversations. So thank you so much for this time.
Yep, thanks for having me. It's been fun.